Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Pastoria Hydros going up against the Laverre Constrictors in our final match before we reach Victory Road of the PokeType League TCG Season A2. And for both these sides, this is just an exhibition game because neither of them will be returning to Victory Road this season. Amazingly so, our top three teams from last season did not qualify for the postseason, but with all that said, let us know in the comments below who you think's going to win this matchup. Will it be the water decks? Will it be the psychic decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And going first, it is that Celestic Dream deck of the Constrictors, moving the Drifloon into the active spot, but they've got their second Drifloon on the bench alongside the Togepi. They've got two Professor's Researchers in hand already. The Hydros moving the Snorunt into the active spot with the Swinub on the bench, and they've got the Piloswine and the Mamoswine ready from this Ice Peak Arena deck. But here we go, our game one in our best of 3 series, and we like to say that our third game still counts toward the leaderboard, but unfortunately on this case it won't affect our top 5 as the Professor's Research is played for the Laverre Constrictors. They get a Cresselia, they get a Drifloon, and they send it over to the Hydros, who do pull the Frostlass. They will be able to get those evolutions online in the next turn, as they do get the 1 energy required for that Icicle from the Snorunt to do 20 damage to the Drifloon, already bringing it down to 40 health. The second Cresselia is pulled for the Constrictors, who also have that Togetic now in hand, playing the Professor's Research. They get the Unknown, they get the Cynthia, they want the Togekiss so they can maximize that Cynthia potential, and they've got the Unknown, who they've used for that check ability all season long. But this is the last time we'll be seeing these two sides until Season A3 of the PokeType League TCG, so this is all for pride at this moment. And they do get the Unknown online to see that they will be pulling a Pokeball on the next turn. They get the Drifblim online as well, moving it on to that active spot. It still requires a second energy, so it cannot go for that Balloon Strike. This allows it to come back to the Hydros, who pull their own Pokeball as well. It's almost as if that Unknown could see what was being pulled for this Ice Peak Arena deck, as they get the Regice thanks to their Pokeball, immediately moving that onto the bench. They can get the Frostlass and the Piloswine now online. Moving that Frostlass, it still requires a second energy. The Piloswine onto the bench as well. And there's that second energy. It can go for the Blizzard, does 40 damage, but it will also do 10 damage to all members of that Celestic Dream bench. There's the Pokeball being pulled for the Constrictors, and they're going for the check before using the Pokeball. A very interesting choice, unless they're opting to not use the Pokeball now. They maybe wanted to see if it would be the Togekiss, knowing that it'll be the Cynthia. That's not the card they want, so they play the Pokeball. This will change that deck order. They get the second Togepi in hand, and there's the Drifblim getting its second energy with this Balloon Strike. Will do 60 damage to the Frostlass, but it only has 40 health remaining, so the Frostlass is actually in control as the Hydros pull their second Regice, and they've got that Irida in hand. It will restore 40 health from any of the members of this Ice Peak Arena deck that has taken damage, and they are going to use it. They want to restore the health of the Frostlass, keeping it out of discard range from the Drifblim, continuing with the Blizzard so they can discard that Drifblim first anyway, but another 10 damage to all the benched Pokemon on the side of the Constrictors. This is fantastic start for the Hydros and this Ice Peak Arena deck, as the second Drifblim is moved on to the bench, and they pull their second Unknown, going with the check. They will see what is being pulled next. And it will be the Togekiss. That is what they have been waiting for. And they do think of getting energy onto the Togetic, sorry, but they're having a look at the Drifloon as well to decide what they might want to do. They could get 10 more damage on to the Frostlass, which would buy them a bit of time, as the Drifloon can outlast the hit from the Frostlass. Looks like instead they're going with the Togetic. Now the Drifloon would have outlasted the hit because it would have reduced damage it takes on the next turn by 20, so the Constrictors might have made an error here. They could have bought themselves a little bit of time and put that Frostlass into discard range, but the Hydros get a second energy onto the Piloswine, and with this Blizzard continuing, they get another 40 damage, eliminating the Drifloon, 10 more damage onto the benched Pokemon of the Constrictors, and they get their second point, 1 more point, and they will lock up game 1. And regardless, we will still play all 3 games for this exhibition match that is for pride for both these two teams. The Togekiss being pulled, it does require 1 more energy. That Overdrive Smash will not be enough though to take out the Frostlass. They'll need to use the Cynthia, as we can see it's the second Drifblim that will be pulled for the Constrictors. And they are going to play the Cynthia. Now, every Overdrive Smash after this one will do an additional 60 damage, so it will be able to do 120 damage, which is not enough to take out the Mamoswine either, but they've taken out the Frostlass. They do get their first point as it comes back over to the Hydros. And they are going to move that Mamoswine into the active spot. That Frosty flattening 120 damage, but it still needs 2 more energy. They are going to get the Rocky Helmet onto the Mamoswine. The Constrictors, they need to pull their second Cynthia. They can take this Mamoswine out in one go with 170 damage, but it is the Drifblim that they were well aware of. Thanks to that check, they do have a look at what they are pulling next. And it is going to be the Giant Cape. This is not what the Celestic Dream deck needs. They know what is right in front of them. They can get a maximum 120 damage onto this Mamoswine, but without the Cynthia, they cannot take it off the board, and that's exactly what this Hydros deck needs. And we see the Rocky Helmet doing an additional 20 damage back to the Togekiss. They do pull the Frost Rotom, but I don't think that's what they're worried about. They're just worried about this Frosty flattening that is going to wipe the Togekiss off the board, and the Hydros get their third point with this Ice Peak Arena deck to win Game 1 in this best of 3 series. But as we have a quick table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you never miss any future games of the PokeType League TCG. As we're heading into Victory Road, the Hydros flipping heads, going with their Sea Guardians deck for this Game 2. And they have got the Manaphy and the Fion in hand. The Manaphy going in the active spot, the Fion on the bench. The Constrictors with their Distortion World deck use the Ghastly into the active spot. They're going with the Giratina on the bench. Here we go, kicking off this Game 2. The Constrictors need to win the next 2 to lock up the series. The Hydros just need to win this one and guarantee the series is theirs. They play the Professor's Research after pulling the Prinplup, and they get the Piplup as well as their second Fion. They cannot generate an energy just yet, but they do get that Piplup onto the bench. It comes back over to the Constrictors. They've got 2 Pokeballs in hand, and they've just pulled the Professor's Research. They are about to thin 4 more cards from this deck. First, it's going to be the Rotom, and they will surely play, and they do use that second Pokeball to get another basic Pokemon. This time it's the Clefairy, and with the Professor's Research, they get another 2 cards. They've also got the Giant Cape in hand. They get the second Rotom. They get a second Ghastly. No evolutions just yet, though, as there are Clefables and Haunters and Gengars throughout that deck, as well as another Giratina. And they do get energy onto the Ghastly. The Astonish doesn't do any damage, but if they flip their heads, a random card from the Hydros deck will go back hand, so we'll go back into their deck, and on this occasion it is that second Fion going back into the Sea Guardians deck. And they do pull another Prinplup, who they can now get online, and they're starting to generate these energies. And with the Oceanic Gift of that Manaphy, it can generate 2 more energy, 1 for 2 Pokemon on the bench of the Hydros, and they've only got 2 there, so that's guaranteed to get 1 onto the Fion and 1 onto the Prinplup. As it does come back over to the Constrictors, they get their second Giratina, who they're starting to set up their benched Giratina. It does require 3 energy, but as soon as it gets an energy onto it with that Levitate ability, its retreat cost, it becomes 0. And with that second Astonish, unfortunately the Constrictors this time do flip a tails. This frees up the Hydros as they get the Professor's Research, trying to get more cards out of this deck. They are going to get the second Irida and another Pokeball, so they can get another basic Pokemon. Surely it won't be the Fion. No, it's not. It is the Manaphy. Okay, they probably would have preferred the second Fion over the Manaphy, but with this Oceanic Gift, they generate more energy. Now, the Fion only requires 2 energy, so it will get its second. The Prinplup requires 2, but if they can get an Napoleon out of their deck, it requires 3, so they've got the cards set up as they need. The Constrictors and this Distortion World deck do get the Clefable out of their deck, so the Clefairy is now online. And the Giratina gets its second energy as these Astonish continue from the Ghastly. And unfortunately, once again, they do get the tails. They can't disrupt the hand of the Hydros at the moment, who now they pull the second Fion once again. And they do get it onto, they think of moving it onto the bench. We can see the Floatzel they've got in hand as well. And I do believe that is the attack, the Wound Floatzel, that only does 10 damage. but if the opposing Pokemon has damage already on it, it does an additional 60. The power of that is massive. As they get the second Fairon online, they get an energy onto it, but they retreat the Manaphy, moving their setup Fairon into the active spot with that Water Pulse. It puts the Ghastly to sleep, plus does 40 damage. The Constrictors flip a tails, so that Ghastly will remain asleep. And they pull the Gengar. They needed the Haunter to be pulled if they wanted to evolve the Ghastly and keep it awake. The Clefable now getting online. It does also require 3 energy for that Moonblast. And the Constrictors flip a tails again, but it didn't really matter because that Ghastly is an easy target. But it's also the Empoleon being pulled for the Hydros. They can get that online immediately with that Aqua Jet. It does 80 damage. It does 30 damage to one of the benched Pokemon of the Constrictors as well, which is a fantastic setup if they get that Attack the Wound Floatzel online. And here it is, the Water Pulse to take the Ghastly off the board into the discard pile, and again the Hydros take the early lead over the Constrictors. And it was in Victory Road last season that these two sides met to actually get into the Champions game, where the Hydros were able to take down the Constrictors. The Constrictors have only beaten the Hydros in one game, not a series, just one single game. As it is that Giratina now online, it has the giant cape on it, and they've just pulled the Team Rocket Grunt, but they may want to save that for the Empoleon, and with the Spooky Shot they can wipe this Fairon off the board and get their point back, moving the Fairon into the discard pile. Now the Hydros need to think about how they want to approach this, knowing that the Empoleon can outlast a hit from the Giratina, but not just one, it can outlast 2 hits from the Giratina. And the Boisel's been pulled for the Hydros, so they immediately get that onto the bench, and the Floatzel only requires 1 energy. The Aqua Jet, like we said, can do 30 damage to one of the bench Pokemon of the Constrictors. And they do target the Clefable, well aware that that Moonblast can reduce the damage that the Clefable takes. It is the second Clefairy being pulled for the Constrictors, who are going to use the Team Rocket Grunt. They need to flip consecutive heads to get energy off the Empoleon. And they get 1, they want this to keep going, they get 2, this is fantastic. This is what the Constrictors need, because now that Empoleon will not be able to go on the offensive on the next turn. There is still the Irida though, that the Hydros have in hand, but that Spooky Shot, 70 damage to bring the Empoleon down to 80 health, who pull their own giant cape now as well, and they are immediately going to play the Irida. They do not want to wait, but they can only use one of them on a turn because it is a supporter card. And as we keep saying, this is just an exhibition for these two sides. We will not be seeing a lot of these cards in next season because they are from the set A2, the A2 sets being the Space Time Smackdown, Triumphant Light, and Shining Revelry. But there's that Attack the Wound Floatzel taking the Giratina off the board. Some fantastic play there by the Hydros, restoring the health of the Empoleon, using that one energy retreat to bring it back, so the 2 energy retreat. So now it's got no energy on it, but they've got the Floatzel in the active spot. It is the Clefable moved into the active spot for the Constrictors here, and there's that second Giratina coming online, and the Clefable's already taken damage, so this Floatzel has the capability of doing 70 damage, but with this Moonblast it does 60 damage, and now Clefable will take 30 less damage on the incoming turn. And it's not even that the Clefable takes 30 less damage, it's that the Floatzel does 30 less damage. However, there is still that second Irida, and it restores health from all the Water type Pokemon that are holding energy, or that are holding Water type energy, sorry. So there's 40 health being restored for the Floatzel, 30 health restored for the Empoleon, and they've still got that giant cape in hand. This Attack the Wound only does 40 damage because of the Moonblast, but it brings the Clefable down to only 30 health remaining. The Hydros only need 1 more point. And the Constrictors do get their Haunter finally, so that is online. And they need to think about how they want to approach this. That Clefable is not safe in that active spot. And it is the Giratina getting an energy, as the Constrictors need to think about how they want to approach this. They are going to retreat the Clefable. They want it to be safe on the bench, but there's still that Empoleon who can target it with that Aqua Jet being able to do 30 damage to a benched Pokemon. The Rocky Helmet is onto the Giratina. The second Floatzel has been pulled for the Hydros, but they have a full bench. They get a second energy onto the Empoleon. The Attack to the Wound is only going to do 10 damage to the Giratina. There will be 20 damage done back to the Floatzel here. And the Constrictors pull in another Haunter. They can get the Gengar online. The Giratina cannot take the Floatzel offline because it's only got 1 energy, and they're moving the energies here onto the Gengar. The Gengar only requires 2 energy. It can get online on the next turn, but there may not be a next turn because the Hydros just have to get an energy, and we're seeing it take place now. Onto the Empoleon. They are going to retreat the Floatzel with the Empoleon. It will do 80 damage to the Giratina, but that's not the target. It's the benched Clefable with this Aqua Jet. It will be wiped off the board, taken into the discard pile, and the Hydros will lock up this series, holding their victories over the Laverre Constrictors once again. But now it's a question of, can they get the clean sweep as we have our final table reset, or can the Constrictors at least leave this season on a good note? They have flipped heads. They will be going first with their remaining red chain deck. The Hydros using their Pacific Rim deck. And it is the Duskull in the active spot with the Azelf on the bench. It is the Meryl for the Hydros into the active spot. Now both teams do have a Pokeball in hand plus a Pokemon tool. It is the Rocky Helmet for the Hydros, the Giant Cape for the Constrictors, who pull the Uxie as well. And with the Pokeball, they're surely hoping for that Mesprit. And that is exactly who they're going to pull, because Mesprit does require Azelf and Uxie to be online, so it can go with that Supreme Blast. 160 damage, but it does have to discard 3 energy that are on it. The Azumarill is pulled for the Hydros. They play the Pokeball, they get the Palkia, and they've got their Tentacruel in hand as well. They get an energy onto the Meryl. They can go straight on the offensive to do 20 damage. Plus they put that Rocky Helmet onto the Meryl. They're trying to discourage the Constrictors, and with this Water Gun, start chipping away at the Psychic types here. Is the Pokemon Communication being pulled for the Constrictors, but it seems like they have all the cards they want at the moment. They do get that Dusclops in the active spot. It does require 3 energy for that Psy Punch though. And this is the part where they really need to think about how they want to approach this, and they're concentrating on setting up the Mesprit at the moment. As it comes back over to the Hydros, they do pull the Tentacool, who is going to be moved onto the bench. They want that Tentacruel online shortly, but the Azumarill does require 1 more energy, just evolving that Meryl. And with the Waterfall, 60 damage onto the Duskull. It will have 10 health remaining. This is not a good start for the Constrictors, who do pull the Cyrus. It can drag a Pokemon from the bench who's taken damage into the active spot. They get a second energy onto the Mesprit, and it is the Azelf who can do 20 damage to any of the opposing Pokemon, even if they're on the bench. The Tentacruel is brought online, but it's the Palkia getting its first of 3 required energy. And with this Waterfall, Dusclops has been taken into the discard pile. The Hydros again getting the first point as they're aiming for this clean sweep. They want to finish their season strong. The Constrictors do pull the Pokemon Center Lady. They get the 3rd energy onto the Mesprit, and with this Supreme Blast, 160 damage, they do get a point back. But it is that Rocky Helmet doing 20 damage back to the Mesprit here. And they get their first point, with both sides taking 1 point each here in Game 3. The Hydros need to think about how they want to approach this. They can move that Tentacruel online and start getting damage off, because it only requires 1 energy, but they're going with the Palkia, knowing that the Mesprit cannot go on the offensive until it gets 3 energy put back onto it. It is the second Palkia pulled for the Hydros. The Constrictors do pull their second Dusclops. And they're thinking about what they may want to do. They are thinking of moving the Giant Cape onto the Mesprit. That would take it out of discard range from the Palkia, unless it flips ahead, because with that Zone Smash, it's guaranteed to do 60 damage. If it flips ahead, it does 120. The Pokemon Communication sends the Dusclops back into the deck of the Constrictors, and they get the Dusknoir. That is not the card they needed. They get the Giant Cape onto the Mesprit. They are hoping that Zone Smash ends up with a Tails. And they do get an energy onto the Uxie. And they check to see how many cards. They've got 9 cards left in their deck, as it does come back over to the Hydros. They pull the Finneon, and they've got a Lumineon there in hand as well. They're getting all the cards they need. They get the 3rd energy onto the Palkia. Can they get the coin flips they need? They need to flip the heads, and they do. 120 damage. The Mesprit is moved off the board. That is the second point for the Hydros. 1 more, and they will take a clean sweep to finish their season. Now the Constrictors do move the Uxie into the active spot. Now when it goes on the offensive with this Mind Boost, it does 20 damage, but it also generates an energy for a benched Azelf or Mesprit. Now there's only the Azelf on the bench, so that will get that second energy placed onto it. Palkia still has 100 health remaining. They can finish this if they get this Zone Smash to do 120 damage. They are going to get the second Palkia online though, and they also get the Lumineon online as they start setting up the Palkia. The Lumineon and Tentacruel only require 1 energy. If they flip a heads, it's all over. They do flip the tails. This buys the Constrictors at least another turn. Uxie only has 1 health remaining as they pull their second Azelf. Now these Pokemon only require 1 retreat. That Azelf that was moved onto the bench gets its first energy. They are moving the Azelf with 2 energy into the active spot, and with this Psychic Arrow they can do 20 damage to any of this Pacific Rim deck Pokemon that are set up. And they are targeting the Lumineon. Now they've got the Cyrus in hand. They still need the Mesprit back in hand and onto the bench. They do get energy again onto the second Palkia, but another coin flip. They need the heads, they get the tails again. It continues to buy this red chain deck more time. They are running out of Pokemon. They do pull the Celestic Talon Elder. This can get a random basic Pokemon from their discard pile, and they get the Mesprit out of their discard pile. They immediately move it onto the bench, and they are going to retreat the Azelf to switch it out with the other Azelf. They're trying to set up this Mesprit. They want to try and get the Palkia off the board with the Psychic Arrow again. They can target any of the opposing Pokemon. This time they're going for the Tentacruel. They just want their options with their Cyrus. Comes back over to the Hydros though. They pull their second Finneon. They can set the energies up now wherever they want as all their Pokemon have them where they need them. And with another coin flip, this time they get the heads. Time has run out for the Constrictors. They have entirely lost their grip as the Hydros take the clean sweep to finish their season. But for neither of these two sides will we be seeing them again in Season A2. But with all that said, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was. And if you did enjoy what you see, please leave a like, share, subscribe. But more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you in Victory Road.